back to the Pages of Light podcast, your destination for discussions of popular fantasy and science fiction novels from a Christian worldview. My name is Tyler, aka Verum, and with me, as always, is Gabriel, aka the Quarantine Quartermaster. Welcome back. How you doing today?
Howdy ho. I'm ready.
Ready for more Wheel of Time. We've been doing a lot of Wheel of Time, I feel like. We did book one in, what was that, December or November? Somewhere around there.
We're on the 6th episode of Robert Jordan straight.
That's true, yeah. But
so we have done a good amount.
That's true.
That's almost half the podcast.
Yeah, that's true. This is the 15th episode of the podcast. So 6 of them now have been on the Wheel of Time. So if you're not a Wheel of Time fan, don't worry. We're going to be doing some other books after this podcast. We're going to
come back next week or next episode.
Yeah, next episode. I'll just give you a plug here. We're going to be doing Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan, book 1 of the Powder Mage trilogy. It's like magic meets
guns.
Early 1800s. Yeah, guns. So it's like political intrigue, war games, magical mysteries, stuff like that. It should be good. I'm about halfway through it right now, so it's pretty good so far.
And I've read it, and I recommended it to Tyler, so I'm excited that we get to do this as part of the podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to do that. We're going to plan to do some more Dune as well. Going to do Dune Messiah coming up here. And then we will see where we go from there. But yes, welcome back to the podcast. So this is Pages of Light. Make sure you guys follow us on social media. You can go to pagesoflight.com. You can go over to YouTube and subscribe if you want to watch the video version. And if you want to support us. As we said, in this episode, we're going to be doing part 2 of book 2 of The Wheel of Time, The Great Hunt, by Robert Jordan. And if you want to check out the last episode we did on part 1, I will leave a link down in the description. The first episode we did we're basically just walking through the plot and giving our thoughts as we go along. So episode 1, we went from the beginning to basically when they get back through the portal stone and there. So we're going to pick up this episode in Cairhien. So we're going to pick up right after they get out of the portal stone. So there's one thing that happens before the Cairhien that we'll touch on. So, but before that, we're going to do another favorite quote from the book here. So I will go first. My quote is from Selene talking to Rand. This is in chapter 16, whenever they're in the other world, in the portal kind of area, where they meet Selene. And so Selene says to Rand, "Some men choose to seek greatness while others are forced into it. It is always better to choose than to be forced. A man who's forced is never completely his own master. He must dance on the strings of those who forced him. If you find the horn of the lyre, there will be no avoiding greatness. But will it be forced on you, or will you take it? That is the question." So I like this quote. It was I like the idea of like you have to choose to like be a great person. Like if you're like she says, like if you're forced into being like becoming a great person, like someone else is kind of like telling you what to do in a sense. Like, but if you're choosing to achieve something great, then you are like the master of your own destiny. Like you make the decisions, and like you have more ownership over it as well. So yeah, thought it was a cool quote and pertinent to Rand because, you know, Rand finding the horn, like he is the Dragon Reborn, right? So he's gonna be something great. So it's basically the question is like, are you going to be the one who's controlling the narrative, or are you going to let somebody else like direct you and tell you what to do. Like, do you want to take ownership of your own life, essentially? So I think it's good words of wisdom to like take ownership of our own life. And if you want to achieve something great, like do it yourself, and don't let other people like don't let other people try to control your life, I guess.
Yeah, it's good. And it is kind of like an important, like, Robert Jordan posed this question for a reason, and the fact that, Rand is at a pivotal point where he can either choose or have it forced upon him. Good selection.
Thank you. What is your quote?
All right, so mine is from Egwene after she was deleashed from the Seanchan. So it says, "She hurt me, Nynaeve. She hurt me. They all did. They hurt me until I did what they wanted. And I hate them. I hate them for hurting me, and I hate them because I couldn't stop them from making me do what they wanted." So this is like a moment where, like,
very emotional.
Very emotional moment for Egwene. And just to be in that place of complete submission to, like, if you even have a thought that is different from what your owner wants you to do, like, you will be so physically hurt. And then there's no marks on your body. You just get to go through all the terrible, horrible sensations of it. And I just feel like, a lot of people who, like, there are a lot of people out there who are living in hurt. I watched this video on like God and hell, and it was an interesting perspective. This is from, if you've ever seen the Bible Project on YouTube. It said in the beginning, God made heaven and earth, and then what the author, or the writer for the Bible Project, Tim something, he said it didn't say that God made heaven and earth and hell. It just says heaven and earth. And he kind of linked it to, like, we live in a fallen world, and we have the power not only to bring heaven to earth, but we also have the power to bring hell to earth. And I just think about the people who are living in a hell day to day. They don't have enough food. They're in abusive relationships. They are in a multi-generational, like, societal loop where they can't break out and become free. Like, these are hells that we have created here on earth. And when she said they hurt me, and they made me do what they wanted to do, like, some people are in these situations and they just feel like there's no way out and there's no hope in the world. And this quote just really spoke to me about how, like, when you meet someone, like, you don't know their story, and you don't know why the way they think and why they think that way. And some people are put in these situations where they are hurt by relationships, people, society, institutions, you name it. And we need to be there and help these people. Like, God wants us to help all people. And that's why we shouldn't be too quick to judge, because we may have had a leg up where other people may have been, like, kept down. So we just have to meet people where they are and understand that sometimes people want to be better or they want to be different, but the situations that they've been placed in are just too much, and has been thrown upon them.
Yeah, it's a good word, good quote. Thank you for sharing. As always, if you have a favorite quote from the book, leave it down in the comments, and let us know why you liked it and what you thought it, like how it spoke to you, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's favorite quotes. Now we can just jump into more of the plot of the book, where we last left our heroes. We had Rand, Huron, Loyal, and Selene escaped the portal stone, and Selene decided, they came out ahead of where Podon Fane and his little crew are, because they either gained time or they were able to travel a farther distance through the portal.
Right.
So they're basically like at a point ahead of where the other people are, and so they're basically waiting for them to catch up to them. And so whenever this happens, they're able to basically watch them come up where they camp, and then they can, so basically they sneak into their campsite, steal the horn, and just run away essentially. And so they successfully do this. Loyal is tasked with carrying this like chest that has the horn and the dagger inside of it, and so they travel to Cairhien. Selene decides that she wants to go ahead and not be with them whenever they arrive at Cairhien, because she's sneaky and mysterious, and we don't know why just yet. So that's interesting. But she leaves him a note, and I don't remember what the note said. Basically just that she's leaving and that she's going to Cairhien. She'll see him in Cairhien, right?
Yeah, because they're in like a little town, and they are seeing this monument being unearthed, and we get a little bit of background from Aes Sedai saying it's like a huge Angreal, a way to like magnify the power of the male side of the one power, Sidene. And then she was like, you can't use it unless both sides. So like, is this thing that they're unearthing like going to be used in the final battle against the Dark One? When Rand becomes true Dragon Reborn, like, is this somehow going to play like a role in this? So the idea is that the crew working on it is unearthing it and then bringing it to Cairhien, and that's where it's going to end up, because the people there can afford to do crazy stuff like this, like a huge excavation and a big move. And then like Tyler said, like Selene leaves this note saying, like, I'm heading to Cairhien, and the innkeeper was all like, you should have gone up and like tried to get into her room, you lord. And and that's where Rand was like in his like,
yes,
I'm gonna make Selene upset mode. Like, I'm gonna be as pedestrian as I can be. I'm gonna play all these dirty songs and make all these soldiers laugh, and I'm gonna play the flute even though I'm supposed to be a lord.
Yep.
So he's being stubborn Rand there. He's just like, I'm gonna do it because everyone expects me to be a lord. I don't want to be a lord.
Yep. I kind of forgot about that scene. Yeah, because they get the horn, they flee, they get to the little village first before they go to Cairhien, and that's where they meet. I can't remember this guy's name. There's like some captain of the guard or whatever who gives them like an escort from the little village to Cairhien, essentially.
Yep, correct.
And
I forgot his name as well.
But yeah, he's like somebody important in Cairhien. I think he's like a captain of one of the lords of Cairhien, like their army there. So, and so he thinks that Rand is a lord as well because of his clothes, and he also looks like an Aielman, so people think that he's like a foreigner coming down, and he's like trying to play the game, you know.
And I love that he's called Rand of House Althor.
Yes, that's right.
That was pretty clever.
It's weird because like Rand didn't like ask for any of this. People just like assumed all of these things about him, and he's just like, I guess I just have to like go along with this because this is what people will think. And basically they're saying like, you can tell people that you're not a lord, but they're just gonna think that you're lying to them. So like whatever he does, basically it doesn't matter. Like he can't get out of the scenario, which is too bad for him because he doesn't really want to play. He doesn't want to play their game. So, but before we get to Cairhien, you mentioned Aes Sedai, and I kind of forgot we didn't really talk about, like, because she wasn't originally with the party. She originally had went with I think it was Moraine back to Tarvalon, or maybe she didn't get all the way to Tarvalon. But I think she may have been sent back
they were on
before
a
they got on the boat.
ship.
Yeah, I think before they got on the boat.
She got on the boat. Yep.
Yeah, so basically Moraine sends Aes Sedai to go back to watch over Rand, because they don't want because they know he's the Dragon Reborn, so they want to make sure they're keeping an eye on him, and they know what's going on with him. And so she is with the other group, the other party, after they got separated through the portal.
She's with Inktar.
Yeah, so she's with Inktar and Perrin and Mat and the rest of the Shannara soldiers. So, and one other thing I thought was cool with that other party while they were in the portal stone was that Perrin kind of gets to reveal to Inktar that he's like a wolf brother, but they kind of play it off as if like, oh, he's also a sniffer. Wow, what luck we have. So I thought that was just kind of funny, where they're basically playing up that he's a sniffer whenever he's actually not, and he's able to commune with the wolves and figure out where.
And they gave him a
Podon
name.
is.
The wolves gave him a name, and they gave Rand a name. So they gave Perrin the name Young Bull.
Young Bull.
And and he was like the killer of the White Cloaks. From the first book, and they called him Young Bull. And then they also gave Rand a name, which is escaping me at the moment. I can't remember now. Everyone in the comments is gonna hate me, but something like Shadow Stalker or something. Yeah, that's totally not right, but that's all.
Leave a comment and tell us what it is.
Yeah, please.
We'll probably look it up. We'll figure it out.
Show me mercy. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. But yeah, I just thought that was a funny thing. Just wanted to mention that, because basically they're like following. So it's like they were all together. They split up. Rand gets to take like a chutes and ladders detour. He gets to take the slide all the way down to the end, and so he has to like wait for them to catch up, and so they go to Cairhien after this escort from this captain, and they go to, I can't remember the name of the inn that they went to. There was a lot of stuff in Cairhien that happened, so it's gonna be hard to remember all the names. But the big thing in Cairhien at the very beginning is that we get to discover that some character is not dead, but he is in fact alive, and that character is Tom Maryland. He survived the attack of the Murdral, although he lost all of his...
He's limping.
Yeah, he's limping, and he lost all of his instruments because he gave them to Rand and Mat. But Rand is able to return his instruments, and he was very, very happy about that. I'm just glad that Tom Maryland's not dead, because he's an awesome character, and I like to hear his stories and his musical talents.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you happy that Tom is not dead?
Oh yeah, I'm very happy that Tom isn't dead, but I'm also a little annoyed with him because I hate when people do this. So he's like, oh, he does two things. When he gets his harp back, he was like, "Did you touch the harp?" And Rand's like, "No, I didn't touch the harp." He's like, "That's good. Your sheep herder fingers were never meant for this musical instrument." And then in the next breath, he's like, "Well, at least you could have kept it in tune for me." So he's all upset that the harp's like way out of tune. And then I'm like, you're telling him to do two things. You don't want him to touch it, but then you can't have it both ways, Tom Maryland. Come on, buddy. Sorry, that was I just went off a little bit right there, but that's okay.
Okay.
So yeah, I thought it was cool, and then also just very tragically, so Tom is like seeing this woman, and she's
Yep.
learning to be like a female gleeman, basically.
Her name's Dina.
Dina, that's right. And when Tom Maryland is introduced, he gets it. He talks to Rand, he gets his stuff back, and because him and Rand go to this same party, and that it comes out that they kind of know each other, Dina is kind of like this collateral damage, and she's killed by henchmen for, I think, the king of Cairhien, or the who's ever has in the most power. And he loved her, and she loved him, and then he ends up. What was his plan after she's found dead? He wants to like kill the guy who did it, but also leave town.
Yeah,
is that where we leave Tom? I think that's.
I thought he was gonna go south to Ilion.
Yeah, I'm having trouble remembering. But we don't see him for the rest of the book. I think that's where
after they leave Cairhien, we don't get to see him anymore.
Yep. So he's still, but he has to leave because his life's in danger. He's also upset and sad. So just kind of tragic little thing that happened to him there.
Yeah. That's what happens when you get involved in the game. The great game. So basically the great game is like this political conniving aspect of the city of Cairhien. There's a lot of like different factions, it seems like. And whenever he gets to Cairhien at these different inns, all these people, like, there's a whole bunch of like rumors like floating around, like, oh, look, who is Rand and where is he from and what's he a lord of and all this kind of stuff, and all these people want to know who Rand is. And so he gets a ton of like letters and invitations from all the different houses and factions, and they're inviting him to their parties that they're having and all sorts of stuff. So Rand's like, I'm not doing any of these things, nothing, don't bother me with these things. And he takes like a big handful of these letters and just like throws them into the fire. And then Huron is like, that was a bad thing to do. They're all gonna think you hate them or whatever. Now they're gonna be really mad. So like in Rand's attempt to like not play the game, he's like playing into the game by making such like a bold statement about like what I think
he's
about
like making
your letters.
A super move. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like in his like naivety, he's making like a power move against all these factions. Like, you see this? I'm gonna throw this in the fire because I don't want it.
Because he just doesn't care.
That's right.
And it would matter. And so like he basically gets invited to like the two most powerful houses.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what he needs, because that's when Varen meets back up with him, and that they've learned that so Rand has the horn, and Loyal is kind of guarding it, and so is Huron, but it's actually stolen in Cairhien, and it's tracked to one of the Lord's houses, and so Rand has an invitation to go to this house for a party, and he brings Varen and Matt Coffin and himself, obviously, and then maybe Ingtar.
I think it was Ingtar. Yeah, I think it was Ingtar as well.
I think,
and he wants to bring Matt because Matt can sense where the dagger is. That's
right.
That's his job, to go find the dagger. And I thought it was funny because like Matt had to play like as Rand's like servant or whatever.
Yeah.
So he had to be like, you go to the kitchens or whatever and get me something to drink or something like that, to like have an excuse for him to leave the party in a sense.
Yeah.
I just thought it was
funny
because
sore about it.
Yeah, because through the whole book he was like, oh, Lord Rand's too good for us. He wants to leave and go off on his own.
That's funny.
And then like this exact same thing happens exactly how he said it would. I just thought it was funny. He's like, oh, Matt,
that was
too
pretty
bad
good
for you.
Sorry, so they're at the Lord's house, and then they find that the Horn of Valir and the Dark Friends have escaped through a way gate, which is there on the premises. And so Rand is in pursuit, and he goes to open the way gate, but he can't get through because Mon Chin Chin, the Dark Wind, or the Black Wind of the Ways, is guarding the door, and he has to get it pushed back inside, and he uses Sidene, I think, to push it back, and then he closes the way gate, and then they're like, well, I guess we're not going through this way. And then they like exit the party. And then it now becomes so Rand is leaving the party, and the Lord says, well, I wasn't going to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you it now. The Podon Thane left a message for you, said he'd wait for you on Toman Head. And I think he's with the promise that if Althor does not show up, that he will hurt the people of Emond's Field. And so this becomes the new motivation for Rand to pursue Podon Thane and figure out where he went. And so they have to find a way to pursue him. And they're looking for another way into the Ways, which is just how the Dark Friends traveled from Cairhien to Toman Head.
Yep. Yeah. So they get
Sorry,
to go
I just need to say before we go any further.
Sure.
Should I talk about my Selene things?
Yes. We can't leave the people hanging. They waited till part 2. Now we gotta tell them.
So in Cairhien, Selene shows up for like a scene and a half.
Yeah, a half second.
Yeah, she like shows up and she's like,
"Was it at the party?
Where's the horn?" No, she was like in the streets, like it was Rand and Loyal and Selene.
Right, yeah. I think it was as they were running away after there was some like explosion.
Yep. There's like fireworks makers, and the Trollocs are like looking for them, and they're worried. And then Selene's there, and she's totally okay. And then also really quick, they're like Selene has a way of influencing those around her. So there was a thing like when they were in that inn before she disappeared, after the portal stone, before she disappeared, and like there was this scene where she like was looking very upset, and then a serving lady like drops a whole like dish of stuff, and she's like, oh, my arm had such a twinge. And I really think that those two things are linked. I think that Selene being upset like caused this woman's arm to like twinge, and like through some like her just feeling that way. And I just picked up on that. I was like, that is so interesting. And I forget like the actual description. I'd have to go back and like look at that part, but it was just like Selene is upset, and then things are manifesting like in the world. Like there's a power around her. Sure. Anyway, so all right, 2 guesses. All right. 1, link to the Seanchan. So when the Seanchan show up, they have Grom. Okay, no one knows what Grom are. Selene knows what Grom are. So 1, she could be someone of the Seanchan. Okay. Number 2, she has forbidden knowledge, and she's kind of in love with Rand. I just don't know. What if she's Lanfear? Because we just have Lanfear just show up at the end of the book for like a page, and she is like, he is mine, and like
I'm trying to remember who she is though.
She is a Forsaken. She's a female Forsaken. Okay. And she shows up for like a page, and she confronts men, and Rand is out cold. And so that's like, he can't identify that she's Selene if she is Selene. But just that, and Selene also hates Aes Sedai. And so I was thinking that the Forsaken had to fight against Aes Sedai. So there's kind of like, and then like this deep knowledge that like if you had been a Forsaken and you've been around for thousands of years, you might have picked up a few things. So yeah, I was wondering if Selene was Lanfear. So those are my two Selene things, either of the Seanchan or doesn't like Aes Sedai.
I like the Lanfear idea.
Yeah,
that's a good.
So,
I like that one.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like, no, all good. Like you're saying, like her like emotions are manifesting stuff like outside in the world.
Yeah, like I'll have to figure out where that part is in the book and tell you to read it. But yeah, she's like in that. Well, it's in the end after the portal stone, and like she's just like, oh, my arm gave such a twinge right there, and it was something in the description right before that about how Selene was upset with the situation, and I think like her anger and her frustration like needed a way to get out. And I think that she is kind of magical in some way because
she does seem to have some kind of magical affinity, and just the fact that as well, like she's always trying to get Rand to like give into
temptation.
Yeah, it's like
she don't you want the horn, Rand? Don't you want me by your side, Rand?
Yeah. There's something like, it seems like she's trying to give Rand what he wants, but there seems to be like some kind of sinister motive for herself in all of it, is what it seems like. Yeah. So those are some good theories. We'll have to
only
wait.
Time will tell.
Maybe we'll have to read 5 more books and then we'll find out.
Maybe.
I don't know. Yes, so they need a way to get to Toman's Head, or Toman Head, not Toman's Head, because they can't go through the ways because of the
black wind.
The black wind is blocking the way. So they decide to go to a Ogier steading, which is very close to Cairhien, because Aes Sedai knows that there is a portal stone that is there, because I think Rand told her about the other portal stone that they went through. So she's like, oh, you went through the portal stone? Like, I know there's another similar portal stone over at this place that we could potentially use, and that would be basically the only way that we could get there quickly, right? So without walking all the way there, which they don't want to do. So they get to go to the Ogier steading. I liked going into the Ogier steading, and it was really cool to see like Loyal's interaction with the people there, because they're all like watching him oddly, and there was something about like all the women were watching him because he's like a single Ogier, and they were looking to like marry him off in a sense, like
because he's being too hasty. Tyler, he's being too hasty. He needs a wife to settle him down.
Yeah, that's right. I just thought it was like a funny scene, and like Loyal, he seems like he's very uncomfortable, and he wants to leave as quickly as possible. So
yeah, that was fun. I like that.
Yeah,
he was definitely very uncomfortable.
Yeah. But it was just cool to get to go to the Ogier steading and just kind of see that little snippet of their world. So,
and I forget if that's the place where they bump into the group of Aiel who were veiled.
Yes, that is. Mm-hmm.
And then they have this conversation about the basically the Aiel Aes Sedai. Like there's women who can wield the power in the Aiel, and they have a special name.
Yeah, it's like they're Aes Sedai, but they're like, it's like a different kind of, like they use the power differently. I think it's something like that.
Yeah. So that's
I don't remember their name either.
Yep.
But
I think that is one of the things that, like, so full disclosure, I have read more of these books, but I was telling Tyler before the podcast that I can't really tell you much of anything. I remember a box and a character getting stuffed inside a box, And the other thing is, I remember we learn more about these people that the Aiel talk about.
I would
They're
hope so,
female
since
Aes Sedai.
yeah, I would
Oh,
hope so,
well,
since
those
Rand is
those
an
are like
Aiel.
those are maybe as we read more, I will remember more things as I reread the books. But
Yeah, sure.
like I don't remember too much, and I think I love doing it now because I get to read it a few more times, and like the story is really ingrained in my memory now, and I think I'll be able to pick up more of it and like
Yep.
the thread of the whole story. And
Yep.
the more like the individual people's journeys through the stories, because sometimes
Yep.
you just lose the individual people in like the whole
Yes.
process of
Yep.
going through the story. But yeah, definitely those two things I remember.
Nice.
um,
Yeah. So the next
Oh.
scene, the portal
is
stone
your
scene.
favorite?
Yeah, this was one of like my favorite scenes from the book. Rand and Varen, basically they go up to like the portal stone and they're like talking, and I think this was your quote from one of these scenes,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
This is the quote from the first podcast where Varen is saying that he's basically Rand has got a gamble on which
Yep.
portal world to use, and he's like, I have no idea. Why are you asking me to make this choice?
Yeah.
Varen's like, we could go to a plane where only where you cannot breathe, or we'd be
Yeah, there's no
dead
oxygen.
instantly. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no oxygen, and we would die. He was like, why are you asking me to do this?
Yep. But yeah, so basically Varen's like trying to convince him to, like, he has to make a decision. This is the only way basically that they can get there in a reasonable time frame. So it's either this or they're going to walk. And so Rand decides he has to do it, and he's just going to do his best. And we get these scenes as Rand is interacting with the portal stone, and they're like the phrasing that Robert Jordan uses is flicker, 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 and they're basically like these visions that Rand gets of like all of these potential alternate realities, alternate timelines, or things that maybe happened in other like turnings of the wheel that he may or may not remember, like seeing lives that could have happened. Yeah, just super.
It's really cool. Like in one, like he always has the power, and in some lives he is caught and he is gentled. In others he hides it successfully. Always he's going mad. One time he marries Egwene and she's like able to sort of help him, but and then like the world is falling around Emond's Field is just like, oh, we're just gonna shear our sheep, and everyone else in the world is like falling and dying, and he becomes a soldier in one life, and every time in every life that he lives he dies, and in his ear is the Dark One saying, I win again, lose Theron. And he hears that over and over and over again.
I just want to read this portion of it because this was like, I think this is one of the last ones. Oh, this was so good. So it says, he was a soldier, he was a shepherd, he was a beggar and a king. He was a farmer, gleeman, sailor, carpenter. He was born, lived, and died Aiel. He died mad, he died rotting, he died of sickness, accident, age. He was executed, and multitudes cheered his death. He proclaimed himself the dragon reborn and flung his banner across the sky. He ran from the power and hid. He lived and died never knowing. He held off the madness and the sickness for years. He succumbed between two winters. Sometimes Moraine came and took him away from the two rivers, alone or with those of his friends who had survived winter night. Sometimes she did not. Sometimes other Sedai came for him. Sometimes Reda Jah. Egwene married him. Egwene, stern-faced and stole of Amyrlin's seat. Aes Sedai, who gentled him. Egwene, with tears in her eyes, plunged a dagger into his heart, and he thanked her as he died. He loved other women, married other women, Elaine, and men, and a fair-haired farmer's daughter met on the road to Cairhien, and women he had never seen before. He lived those lives, 100 lives, more, so many he could not count them, and at the end of every life, as he lay dying, as he drew his final breath, a voice whispered in his ear, "I have won again, Luz Theron. Flicker." Oh,
And
what a
Flicker.
masterclass of writing. That was just so good. So
Yep.
good.
I got chills when you read it. It was good.
Yeah. So like, yeah, that just gives you a picture of like the totality of like all the things that he was experiencing in those moments, like all the different potential futures or potential pasts that he could have had. I like the callback and he married a fair-haired farmer's daughter met on the road to Camelin, like the
Yep.
girl that he met with Matt whenever they were traveling. Like he married that girl in one of the alternate pasts or timelines. Yeah,
Just stayed there right on the farm. Just hung out. Just said, "I'm not going any further."
Yeah, that's right. So, just like all the potential like futures or things that could have happened based on if different decisions were made. Like, I love the idea that Moraine didn't come for some of them, right? So he just got to stay in Emmons Field. He could marry Egwene and they had kids, or whatever it is, or like this when it says Egwene with tears in her eyes plunged a dagger into his heart, and he thanked her as he died. It's like he is asking his own wife to kill him because he's going insane and he's going to kill other people around him and he knows it. Just like there's so many like little things about this paragraph that is super impactful, and yeah, it's just such great writing by Robert Jordan, and yeah, can't go on and on about this scene. And there was other parts of that scene as well that I didn't read there, so such good stuff.
Yeah, that was really good. And yeah, and I just love that, like, when I think about the multiverse, like, or the different turnings of the wheels and everything, I feel like it gives me ownership over my life more. Like, this is my timeline. This is my life. Because there are different quarantine quartermasters that maybe never became the quarantine quartermaster. I don't know what that means for me, but that's where I'm going. Like, I feel like there's this incredible amount of ownership. Like, hey, this is mine. Like, and I might not be feeling that every day, but there are so many different realities that, this is the one that you're in charge of. This is the one that you get to govern and decide and make decisions for. So I find that really cool.
Yeah. There's like philosophical theory where like this universe or this plane is like the best of all possible worlds. Kind of like how people make the argument against God, like, why does God let all these people die and they can't get to go to heaven or whatever? And some people's counter to that is maybe this is the way, this is the world where the most amount of people possible can come to know Jesus. And that's the path that we're on, right?
Oh.
So
I haven't heard that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, so like in the world with sin, like there's always going to be people who don't come to heaven, but God chose the path that the most amount of people could have fellowship with him.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so that kind of, it's like a little parallel there where like there could have been other paths or other decisions made, because God's in charge of the world, and he has it in the palm of his hand, and he's making sure that the most amount of people come to know him before the end. So I don't know, little Christian parallel there.
That's good.
But yeah, great scene, really awesome. So through all of that stuff that's happening, and Rand seeing all of those visions, he is able to get them through the portal stone, and they come out in Toman's Head. I think it was maybe closer than they wanted to be, if I remember correctly. I think one of them mentioned like, wow, we're super close. We shouldn't probably be this close. They might see us or whatever. But the reveal is that they've lost like, I think it was 4 months.
Yeah, I think it's 4 months.
Which was like the opposite of what they wanted. They were trying to get there quickly, and instead they lost 4 months. But Huron still says like, nah, Podon Fane still here. I can smell him. So, which Podon Fane said he would wait for Rand. So he probably knew this was a possibility, that it would take him a long time to get there. So yeah. So this is when we get to Toman Head, and let's take a break from Matt, or I always confuse Matt and Rand for some reason. So let's take a break from Rand's portion of the story and go back with the women and the Seanchan. So we have Leandrin betrayed the women. So Egwene is a prisoner. Min is made some kind of servant. So she has a bit more freedom, but she's still kind of like under their care, the Seanchan's care. And then Nynaeve and Elaine are able to escape, and they're kind of just in the town, making do. I think they had some money, so they were able to buy like a room in an inn, and kind of buy some time to figure out what they should do. And I'm trying to remember the timeline here of when the women get sent, and then whenever they arrive, Rand and everybody else arrives.
Yeah,
I think they're closer together.
Yeah. So let's just review Seanchan for those who are just joining us.
Yes.
I don't think we've given the background. So the Seanchan are like an invading force from across the sea. They're super powerful. They have like monsters and stuff like the Grome. They have some flying creatures, and they also have chained Aes Sedai. We would call them Aes Sedai. People who can wield the one power, and they are just a force to be reckoned with. And then they make everyone take these oaths that like they will always obey, and they will stand ready for the return of the Seanchan. And then they're like, okay, go do your life now that you've taken your oaths. And so they're very like laissez-faire, like, okay, you've said your oaths. And they also have like a crazy amount of like obedience. When our hero Doman, the ship captain, meets High Lord Turok, who is of the Seanchan, he has to like bow and like get on his face and like basically kiss the dirt. He was like, I wouldn't even do this for the most powerful people in our country. Like, and this is what they all expect and everything. So just a very different society. I feel like at least the side we're meeting is very militaristic, highly organized, and they're the invading force, and they've landed on Toman Head, and they basically have made it headquarters for their invasion, which we don't know how deep into the land it's going. But I think I looked at a map of the Wheel of Time area, and I believe Toman Head is like to the south. On the water. And so these are the people that have captured Egwene and Min, and Egwene is now a leashed one, and she is what is called a Damani, which is any women who wield the one power can be chained, and then the owner of the leash, the Suldam...
They use a device called the Adam.
Yeah, the Adam. Yep. That's
like
the
the
leash
chain that's around their neck,
/ bracelet. And and so basically you can think at the chained one, and then they can be like really hurt, and you basically, and that was where my quote from today's was Egwene saying how much she hated them forcing her to do whatever they wanted her to do. So I think Egwene spends weeks as a Damani. Like, I don't think it's short. And she learns how to create like earthquakes and stuff, basically use like earth magic. And she also learns that she has an affinity for discovering rare minerals in the earth. And they're like, oh, very few Damani can do this. And I thought it was very interesting that they call Aes Sedai Damani, which means like they will be leashed eventually.
Yep.
And I just thought like that's so interesting. Like, do people exist in a way that they will be something no matter what? Like, you're just an uncaught, Damani is what you are, Aes Sedai.
Yep.
Like, does that exist? Like, people are the way they are until something happens to them, or is it something that they were? I don't know. That was just an interesting thing that like kind of stuck in my mind, like the way that the Seanchan think about the Aes Sedai. You're just not caught yet is like
Yep.
the thing that they are into. And then like you have this power struggle between Leandrin, who serves the Dark One, and then the Seanchan leader who serves the Dark One, and they both are like, one day you will bow to me, and one day you will bow to me. Okay. Where were we? So we did the background. Egwene's prisoner as a Damani. I think it is weeks. And then that's when Nynaeve and Elaine
they like hatch a plan. Yeah.
Yep. And so their plan is basically they're going to capture a Suldam and get her leash and then pretend to be a leashed one and sneak into the where they keep all the Damani, all the leashed ones, and get Egwene out.
Mm-hmm.
And then they find out this interesting thing where if you're a Suldam, which is the leash holder and basically the person who can inflict all the pain on the leashed one, that you actually can channel. And so they actually leash one of the Suldam, and then the Suldam is the person who's been hurting the Damani for years, and then she's forced to endure it for just moments, and she can't take it. Very, very interesting. And also just like Robert Jordan building in a device that, you look at the Aes Sedai in book 1, and they're like these all-powerful, like, witch people who have like all this power, and you're like, oh man, like they're basically unstoppable. And then you have this device that completely flips that premise on its head. Like, they're completely vulnerable to being, captured. And then once they are captured, there is literally nothing they can do of their own power to get themselves out. They have, and then they have to do things that they don't even want to do. They have to follow the Suldam. So to create that kind of like you have these women who are incredibly powerful in the first book and then completely vulnerable in the second book. Like, I didn't see that coming. Like, that was a really cool like invention there. And then it was revealed that the first Adam was made by an Aes Sedai.
Yeah,
they were the one who researched it and created it.
Yeah, I think it's cool to give like there has to be a counter to like your power, right? Like, you can't just have like an all-powerful magical being. It's because that kind of a story is boring. Like, there's no stakes, right? There's nothing like.
Didn't we read about that though? Didn't we read about that in Warbreaker? Isn't that what's his name, the God King with all the breaths?
Yeah,
he was all powerful.
Yeah, but they took his tongue out, right? So.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So he couldn't actually use any of it
until the end of the book, and then
don't spoil it. Spoilers for Warbreaker.
Oh yeah. Well, we already did Warbreaker. People
That's
know
true.
this.
But what if somebody didn't listen to that episode? They just came for Wheel of Time.
Well, we are a spoiler. Hey. We don't spoil future stuff. But if we're talking about a topic, we dig in.
Yes, that's true.
Sorry if you had. Okay, apologies to the listeners who have not yet listened to our first episode.
That's true. That was our first episode. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, it feels like a long time ago.
It does feel like a long time ago.
But yeah, I like that they introduced like something that's a counter to the power of the Aes Sedai. Sort of like Superman has kryptonite. Like, you have to have something that can defeat your hero characters.
The ultimate
right?
power.
Yeah, right. And like even the Aes Sedai have ways to remove the power of their own people. Like they can gentle them. Like they can remove their ability to touch the one power. They can take it completely away. So actually, I don't think I don't know if they've ever said this, but I assume they could gentle another woman, right? It's not just reserved for men.
Yeah, I think it's called stilled if it's
Stilled,
a
if
woman.
it's a woman.
Yeah, a woman's being stilled and a man's being gentle.
Okay. Yeah, so they can still do that if there's some rogue Aes Sedai out there that they need to get
Rogue
rid of.
Damani.
Rogue Damani.
Darath Damani.
Yes. So kind of while they're hatching their plan and executing their plan to get Egwene and Min out, at the same time we have Rand and Ingtar. They go into the town that at Toman Head, which is called Falma.
Yep. Falma.
And basically they're going in there to try and get the horn back and the dagger. And so they go in there and they find the horn, and Rand has to fight this. You mentioned High Lord Turak of the Seanchan. So Rand has to fight him, and this is like his test if he's like a true Blademaster or not, right? So, which he is able to defeat him. Which whenever I read that, like I didn't necessarily feel like that was earned.
I agree.
I didn't necessarily. I understand that there had been time that passed, and he had been training, but I didn't feel like he would have the skills to do that. I mean, he can channel, I guess, so he has like kind of a one-up a little bit with his abilities.
I feel like that's the only like real explanation, because I mean, he did not do enough training with Lan. Lan's like, I could turn you into a Blademaster in 5 years, and Rand openly admits like, I was only there for a few months. Like, there's no way that he's Blademaster level. But yeah, Turak goes like, let's see what it takes to earn a heron on this side of the ocean, which I thought was really interesting. So I mean, you know, Rand has the void, which I feel like would like take a level playing field and like take him up, but like it like took like, I feel like the void should have made him like a match for Turak, because he was on like the defensive, but at the end he surpasses Turak in his ability and kills him. And then you have that very weird scene where we just see the loyalty of the Seanchan people, and like the two servants are like, "To life we serve," or something, and then they stab themselves and they kill themselves and bleed out on the floor after Turak dies. And Matt is like, "What is going on? Seriously, what is happening right now?" Oh, and then that was
the same reaction.
And then in that scene where where Rand's gonna find Turak, Matt Coffin stabs someone with the dagger. He finally is reunited with it, and then they like shrivel up, like the injury turns black, and then their whole body turns black, and then they're basically like a husk of a person, and they fall dead to the ground, and everyone's like, "Huh?" And Ingtar is like, "See, you're not going to beat us that easy," and then they all start fighting.
I think whenever Podon Fane killed the Fade, or was it a Murdraw that he killed? I think he used the dagger. That's how he was able to kill him.
Yeah, he. I remember him hammering stuff into the. Yeah, Fade, Murdraw. I think they're the name. Like, they're synonymous terms.
They're interchangeable.
Yeah.
But yeah, the scene with Rand and him winning that sword fight, I didn't feel like it was completely justified. Like, that's probably a critique I have about this book, is it seems like Rand is untrained in channeling, So like even though he can do it, it doesn't. I don't feel like it should really give him like a one up on his abilities just because you can channel. I guess that means you could have like just like bursts of power or energy come forth, and you could win in that way. But I don't know. It doesn't feel necessarily earned. Like he didn't train long enough to be able to win that fight.
Yeah, as a sword master and as a wielder of the one power.
Yeah.
Well, if you're gonna give a critique, I will match you critique.
All right, here we go.
I thought it was too easy the way that the Horn of Valir changed hands, because it did it like 3 times.
Yeah, it's
like
true.
the raid on Faldara, I get.
Yep.
Like that was a forced effort, but then Rand's like,
sneak attack.
"Oh, I'm just gonna sneak into this camp and grab this humongous box," and
That's right.
and Loyal is going to be able to carry it and walk out with it, like this huge box, and no one's gonna wake up. And then they do wake up and they chase him, and then Podon Thane comes in and is like, "Oh, I got the horn back." And then like him not being able to open it. And then Turok is like, "Oh, here's how you open it. Boop, 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 boop." And I think Celine's able to open it. Those were the only parts where I was like, yeah, maybe it could have been a little different. But, hey, you know what? If that's my only critique of, like, the hundreds and hundreds of pages...
At least it's, like,
I'm
dramatic.
Still gonna say it.
Like, you're like, oh, the horn's gone again. No.
It does feel that way.
Yeah, because if they... the thing is, if they would have kept the horn in Cairhien and Ingtar would have gotten there and they kept it, then you wouldn't even have had like the rest of the whole story. Like they would have, there would have been something else that happened, I guess, if they were able to keep the horn. But yeah, there's always going to be some critiques. No book is perfect. Even Wheel of Time, whenever Robert Jordan writes such great passages like the one we read earlier. It can't be perfect. But so we continue. We have Lord Turok is defeated by Rand. So they get the horn and the dagger back, and Matt is reuniting with the dagger. Yay, he's very happy he gets his dagger back and he's not going to die anymore. Very good. And so there's basically like when all of these events are happening, there's the escape attempt the rescue attempt from Min and Nynaeve with the Seanchan. There is Rand going to retrieve the horn and fighting Lord Turok, and there's also the kind of battle portion going on where we have the White Cloaks and the Seanchan are about to have a battle here, and so we have Geofram Bornhald, and he's one of the like White Cloaks. We get some little flat like scenes with him throughout the book of some stuff happening. I can't really remember a specific scene that he's in, but like I think there's like 3 chapters maybe where we get some flashbacks to what he's doing and what's happening.
What confuses me is like Bornhall and the other White Cloak leaders, they both have B names and I get them confused.
Yes, there was the ship captain.
Well, that's Doman. But I'm talking about the 2 White Cloaks. The 2 White Cloaks both have B names. It's like Bornhald and Bayer. That's right. Bornhald and Bayer.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Isn't Bayer the one who was like all angry at Perrin and like he's a dark friend, we should just kill him in the first book? Child Bayer. I think that's him.
Yes, that's him. Yeah.
And then they tell the one White Cloak tells the other White Cloak, "I'm going in. You need to tell my son that I died doing White Cloak duty, and then he wasn't allowed to participate
Yeah.
in the fight, and he was upset about that. And I just forget which B was which. I think Bornhall dies, or is it Bayer who dies? I think it's Bornhall.
Yeah, I think it's Bornhold. So yeah, basically all those things are happening at the same time, or like around the same time. And so as like their whole group is escaping, Rand, like they actually get to meet back up with Elaine, or no, with Nynaeve and Egwene, and they're kind of caught between the battle between the White Cloaks and the Seanchan. And this is where Matt just decides, I'm gonna blow the horn, because I don't know. I guess he was just like, this is our only choice, and we need to blow the horn right now. I can't remember his,
I thought that was
his
interesting,
specific reasoning.
I thought that Rand was going to be the person who blew the horn, because he's the Dragon Reborn. He's like the most powerful person in the whole group. But no, it's Matt Coffin. And the trickster. So
Matt has a dagger, and now he's got the horn. So he's the collector of trinkets.
But remember that when Arthur Hawkwing is summoned, and then the book kind of describes like a time freeze, like where they like talk it out. He says we follow the banner, not the horn.
Not the horn blower. Yeah.
And then that's when Perrin steps up and says, "Give me the banner," and he makes like a little flag post out of it, and he becomes the banner bearer for the returned might of Arthur Hawkwing and his entourage.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a cool scene. It was cool to see them. I don't remember all of the characters that were there. Arthur Hawkwing, of course, but there was a few other people.
Brigitte, I think, and her bow, I think, was one of them.
Yep.
And then they were all laughing at Rand about his choice in women. And then they were like, "Oh yeah, you always choose ones that are feisty," or something like that. And then I thought it was interesting that one of the people said Luz Theron, like they all address Rand as Luz Theron, which is also interesting to me. Like, why is like Luz Theron like the one that they all recognize? Is because he was the last Dragon Reborn, but there are other iterations of Luz Theron. Like, why is Luz Theron the name that they use? But one of them said like, "I have fought beside you as many times as I've fought against you." Like, I thought that they were always, like, if you were in this particular army, like, you were always on the side of the dragon. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But I guess that goes back to that cyclical nature. Like, you know, sometimes we live different lives and our lives go different ways. But
yeah, it's
interesting to me because you think of time as a wheel and it's supposed to be a prison, like you can't escape from it. So it's interesting that, you know, one of those characters was like, "I've fought with you and I've fought against you."
Yeah. But yeah, it was cool to see that all those characters come and have those little conversations. So they basically go off and they help to defeat the Seanchan army. I don't remember. Oh, yeah, so the children of the White Cloaks are defeated by the Seanchan, but then Arthur Hawkwing and his group defeats the Seanchan, so now it's just Arthur Hawkwing and his group with Rand. And then we have the climactic sword battle between Rand and Bael'Zamon, in which they fight in the sky so everybody can see. Similar to like the ending of the Eye of the World. Again, I'm kind of don't really remember all of the specific details of the battle, Maybe that's like my problem. Maybe I'm just not good at remembering details of climactic scenes. Maybe that's like my flaw my flaw as a
they
reader.
happen really fast. Like
They do happen
there's not
really
like a lot
fast.
of meat to it. It's not like he explains them very
Yeah.
deeply. It's just like this is a scene that happens and it's very
Yes.
fast, but it's pivotal.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I get to those scenes, I should read the chapter twice to let it like sink in. I'll do that for book 3. So
Look,
there we go.
we'll figure it out.
Yep. I'm kind of just looking at the wiki here to refresh my memory. Do you have
Yeah, what's interesting, they said that Rand said that he felt like when he would push forward against the Dark One, that his army, like Arthur Hawkwing's army, would surge forth against the Seanchan. And he knew in his head that those two battles were somehow linked.
Sure.
And so I thought that was very interesting. Oh, and this is also the point where after High Lord Torok is defeated, and I think before Arthur Hawkwing is summoned, Inktar has his confession that he is a dark friend, and that he has been in the entirety of the book. He says, I've waited too long. We must find the horn. We must get the horn. And he's kind of got this like mantra every time, Varen, I'm tired of waiting. We must go now. Like we have to find the horn.
He's very gung-ho.
Yeah, and then you find out that he was a dark friend, and he's looking for salvation. He's looking to undo the wrong that he did at the beginning of the book of letting the person with the arrow come in, and possibly also the whole full invasion of Faldara, and all the people that died there because he was a dark friend. And he was basically upset that his people, the Shinarans, fight for freedom against the power of the Dark One and the Blight and the Trollocs, and then you have people living, the Queen and all her subjects and all these people living normal lives, and he's just upset that he's the one who's always having to fight and to do this stuff, and that's why he became a dark friend. But Rand says he was always my friend, and so you just kind of see Rand's character, that he knows someone. Even if they made the wrong decision, he's still willing to see that in them, the good in them. That's the way we need to be, obviously. God wants us to see the good in others. But I think there are limits on how much is tolerated.
Sure.
Like, especially when I think about abusive relationships. I'm like, I don't think God wants us in abusive relationships. But I do think he wants us to forgive one another. I do believe that as well.
We're supposed to love our enemies.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean we have to like let the enemy abuse us. Like you can still like love them as a person and like want the best for them. And maybe part of wanting the best for them is for them to stop acting the way they are, so.
And to establish boundaries on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Yep. Yes. So there is the battle with Baelzamon. Just kind of looking at the wiki here. So it says that he's forced to, like, Rand is forced basically to let his enemy strike a blow to him so that he can attack Baelzamon, basically, because they're too evenly matched, it seems like. So he has to like let his guard down. I think this was throughout the book, maybe not throughout the book, but there's a scene with Ingtar, I believe it is, and Rand, and Ingtar says something along the lines of, like, you have to know when to sheath your sword, like when is the right time to put down your weapon and to let the enemy attack you. And this is kind of like the culmination of that, where like Rand realizes like I have to put my sword down for a moment so I can like basically win this battle. And that's like him sheathing his sword so that Baelzamon can get his attack through, and that way Rand can then get an opening to attack the Dark One.
And yeah, so that was origin. I think those are Lan's parting words to Rand. So after Rand sees the Aes Sedai, the Amerlin seat, and he's saying goodbye to Lan. I think that's when Lan is like, "I have one more lesson for you, sheep herder: sheathing the sword." And he talks about taking your own life to accomplish something. And then Rand confronts himself several times. He's like, "Oh, maybe I should just sheathe the sword." And then it talks about death is as light as a feather, and life and duty is as heavy as a mountain. And then Ingtar also talks about sheathing the sword. So yeah, it does come up several times. And he takes his sword form, Heron in the rushes, which leaves him off balance but ready for an attack. And then that's when Min finds him injured after the battle in the sky, and she cares for him, and that's where we have the one scene. I'm assuming it's only 1 page long, with Lanfear, the most beautiful woman that Min has ever seen, comes in and gazes upon Rand as he's unconscious, and "I am Lanfear, girl," and she's a Forsaken, which means she serves the Dark One, and she's ultra powerful, and I think she's been around since the breaking of the world. I think that's what I think the Forsaken were trapped and bound the same way Shaitan was at the breaking of the world, when Luce Theron broke the world. I think they were all captured, and so the seals are breaking and more Forsaken are getting out. And so she just shows up for like a page, and then she's back out of the book. And then they're like on a cargo train, I feel like, and leaving, and Moraine is with Rand when he wakes up, and then she shows him a picture of him fighting the Dark One, and he's like, "Don't show that to anyone." And she's like, "They're in all the villages that we're going through. Everyone has heard about how you fought the Dark Lord in the sky on the day at Toman Head."
Yeah, so that's kind of where we leave off our story. Rand he finally accepts that he's the Dragon Reborn, and he decides to take up the banner, and so that's kind of where we leave off. And yeah, I think this was a really good sequel. I really enjoyed the second book, probably a little more than the first book, which I talked about that a little bit in part 1. We talked about which book we preferred reading, book 1 or book 2. So I think this one was a little bit better in my opinion. I think the story is a bit more streamlined, and also it's just it's easier to follow along after you've been in the world a little bit. Not everything is super new anymore, and you're already familiar with all of the characters and stuff. So and there's just the longer you see this with a lot of fantasy series, the longer they're in the world, I feel like the more things can get fleshed out, and you kind of get to solve some more mysteries, but you also get to have some new mysteries that you are looking forward to discovering later on. So yeah, lots of great things for this.
And is Lanfear Selene?
Is Lanfear Selene? I could look up the answer right now if we want. No.
Nope.
Don't do that.
Nope. I don't care about spoilers, but I'm not going to go look for them either.
Yeah, but you don't want to ruin the journey.
That's right.
You'll always know what's going to happen. That's boring. You'll never be surprised.
Yeah. I don't want to do that.
All right. Last little bit here. Do you have any book 3 predictions or hopes, or anything you want to see specifically in book 3? Something explored or something happened to a character?
Well, as I mentioned, I've read these books before, and I just can't for the life of me remember where the story goes from here. Yep. But if I were to think, well, I do know do know a little bit. So now that's the third thing that I remember. The box. We're going to learn about those Aiel women. And this kind of goes along with that. And I know that the women are going to be trained a little bit more, or we're going to learn more about the magic system. And I forget if that's in this book and how the magic system actually works. So that'll be fun to rediscover that. How the magic system works. So that's all I've got for book 3.
Yeah, magic system would be really cool to explore more of. I'd like to see more like Aes Sedai political stuff, because we got a lot of that in the TV show, but we don't really get a lot of that in the books just yet. So looking forward to seeing some of that, because I know they've pulled in stuff from later books into the show. I want to see more Tom Maryland, because I'm always about Tom Maryland.
You like Tom Maryland.
So more Tom Maryland, please. I think I'm interested to have learn about other characters. Like, I'd like to see more point of view chapters from some of the other characters, because it's really just been all about Rand so far, which is fine. I mean, he's like the main character of the whole series, so it's probably good to start to have your first books like really all about him and kind of getting to know who he is. But I hope we get to learn a little bit more about some of the other characters and like their more internal dialogue and like how they think about the world and stuff. So yeah, like some of the stuff with the Aes Sedai, like Egwene and Nynaeve, seeing them get to train and get more adept with their powers, and also Lan as well, or Rand. Like, I want to see him. Like I said, he didn't really earn the sword fight win at the end. Like, I want to see him like actually train and like become like a true Blademaster. Like, I want to see him achieve that. So maybe we'll get to go back with Lan and train some more. So I don't know. We'll see. Anything else?
No, I'm looking forward to I've really enjoyed our Wheel of Time like discussions and everything, but now I'm looking forward to Promise of Blood in next podcast, because like I said, I've read that book a few times, and it is much different from the books that we have been reading. I think it's its own like little genre. It's a very niche, where you have the powder mages and like the guns and the fantasy, because usually you get one or the other. You either get guns or you get fantasy, but you don't get guns in fantasy very much, which is pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to our. I'm gonna download it tonight on my phone so I can get it started for the morning commute. That's when I get all the commute. 80 minutes a day of commuting, maybe more. So I get lots of reading done on the commute.
That's a good way to crank a lot of books out.
Yep.
So yeah, that's what we're gonna do next episode. We're gonna do Promise of Blood. Not sure if we'll probably do 2 episodes on that. Not sure. We'll have to, whenever I finish reading, I'll have to outline and see, what we can talk about and stuff. So we'll just see what happens there, but that's what we'll be doing next for sure. And then we'll also be doing some Dune as well. And I don't know, maybe if I like the first book a lot, maybe we'll just do the next 2, and we'll do the whole trilogy of the Powder Mage trilogy. So I don't know, we'll see what happens. If you have a preference,
you wouldn't regret it.
I wouldn't regret it. Yeah, I probably wouldn't. It's good so far. I'm like halfway through, so
sweet.
If you have a preference of what we read, leave a comment, let us know, or leave a review, or any of those things. If you want more pages of light content, you can go over to our website, pagesoflight.com. You can check us out on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Goodreads. Go subscribe on YouTube. It is free and helps support this. What am I calling this? A brand? This podcast, this show, whatever it is. And you can also watch the video version of this if you want to see our facial expressions when we talk instead of just our voices. You can also follow Gabe at neighborhoodnerdservices.com, and links for all of those things will be in the description, so you can check that out, as well as a link to buy the book if you would like to. Yeah, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts. Let us know what you think of the podcast, and what you'd like to see us read next. So we're always looking for new suggestions, and there's lots of books out there, so there's plenty of material. Anything else from you, Gabe?
We'll see you next time for Promise of Blood.
Yes, Promise of Blood. We'll see you there. All right, thanks for listening or watching. Remember to keep reading and to share the gospel with somebody this week, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
See ya.